In this video, I will be comparing and contrasting the different technology integration frameworks. We read in our materials 5 different frameworks. Those were TPACK, the TIM, the SAMR model, Technology Integration Planning Cycle, and the EEE framework. And all 5 have their uniqueness to them, but in the same way, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, they do have a lot in common, just with their outlook on technology and how it looks in the classroom. This is the first time I've actually heard of all of 5 of these, so it was a really good experience to read through them and compare and contrast them. Talking about the similarities between all the frameworks, it was very evident that all the frameworks agree that technology is a tool to assist students in reaching their learning goals. There was a lot of emphasis on just learning targets and objectives, and most of the frameworks have that as their key component, but as you'll see when I contrast, not all of them start with that. I thought that all the frameworks focus on using quality technological tools rather than just quantity, and really being mindful of how it's being used in the classroom. I also found that all models discussed how technology is impacting students' ability to grasp the learning goal, both positively and negatively. There was one article that talked about if it's fully engaging students or if the engagement is taken away by distraction. All the frameworks talked about technology being integrated mindfully and practically and not just used as an add-on or an extra. And going off of that, technology should not be used in isolation. Pedagogy, which is how we deliver the content, and the content itself are just as equally important as the use of technology in the classroom. Next, I will be contrasting the different frameworks and talking about the differences between them. In this section, I end up comparing a few to each other, but at the same time, I'm talking about the differences and contrasting them all as a whole. The work that I'm going to talk about is the TPACK model. This consists of 3 different components: pedagogy, content, and technology, and how they all intertwine. They talked about the center of that diagram being the sweet spot, and wanting to incorporate technology or pedagogy or how we deliver the content and the content itself should all be integrated together. Probably not perfectly in every lesson, but it's good to keep that on the forefront of our minds. This model challenges teachers to think about incorporating technology in the classroom, but it definitely lacks, and the Kolb text attested to this, it lacks the steps on how exactly to do that practically in the classroom. It's mostly just theoretical and what ideally should happen, but there weren't any like how-tos or what it actually practically looks like in the classroom. That all of these frameworks incorporate technology in the classroom and what that looks like. But here I'm going to discuss kind of some similarities and differences between a few of the different frameworks. It was evident that EEE framework and Technology Integration Planning Center focus first and foremost on instructional goals. That's their priority, while SAMR and TIM focus first and foremost on the technology part, and then later consider the instructional goal and learning targets. Above, the SAMR and TIM, or the Technology Integration Matrix, focus on the technology first, and then look at the learning goals second. They do not address how technology is meeting those learning goals. Here's a picture of the SAMR model, and just a few pictures of the matrix from the TIM model. The next 2 frameworks, the most useful and student-centered. The EEE framework is actually connected with the ISTE standards for students, which we learned about yesterday. It takes the strongest pieces of all the other frameworks that I talked about and combines them to form a more practical tool for learning first, then technology second. It moves from artificial engagement or substitution and towards technology being a true, engaging, and enhancing learning experience that extends past the regular school day. And it supports the idea that technology tools should be integrated only after learning goals are defined. And then lastly, the Technology Integration Planning Cycle starts and ends with the learning objective, which is huge.